Hello, license holders. A very warm welcome to each of you from our main office in Chicago. We are very excited to be on the webinar with you today as we welcome Calamus to the One License family. This webinar is intentionally designed for users in the UK, Ireland, and continental Europe. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to those of you who are watching this webinar after the fact, so thanks for tuning in. Regardless of whether you're watching with us now or watching later, thank you for all that you do for your ministries. It's an honor to partner with you in congregational song. I'd like to introduce you to our partner in the UK, Nicholas. Nicholas, please introduce yourselves and say hello to those who are joining us today.
Hello, I'm Nicholas, and welcome to all the Calamus license holders who've managed to get this far. Back to you. Hello?
We're here. I'm just waiting for our video to load. A few notes. The webinar will run no longer than 1 hour in length. In the coming days, the webinar will be posted to our blog, news.onelicense.net. There you can rewatch this exact video and share it with your teams. This webinar only requires the use of speakers or headphones. There's no need to have a microphone or a video camera since you are an audience member. So again, a warm welcome to those of you who are just joining us. My name is Brenna Cronin. I'm the General Manager of One License here in Chicago. Before we watch our overview video, I want to invite you to take out a piece of paper and a pen so you're able to take notes throughout our session, and you can also jot down questions that you have. We'll explain our Q&A process here in just a moment. So please enjoy our overview video as we watch together.
One License. Download, create, report. Once you're a subscriber, you'll have access to thousands of downloadable music image files from our catalog of member publishers, and our outstanding database will help you make sure the song or text you're looking for is covered. Creating worship aids, bulletins, and projections has never been easier. Search for your song and download high-resolution music image files, all in one place. By taking advantage of the most up-to-date technology, our website makes it easy to report the titles you use. This ensures authors, composers, and publishers receive fair compensation. Music directors, pastors, and their teams can report song usage 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. And our convenient list feature allows you to store frequently used titles for future access, or to download your entire list of songs at the click of a button. One License offers annual, event, and single-use reprint licenses. Annual licenses are the economical choice for those who reprint or project music on a regular basis. Event licenses are great for retreats, conferences, and conventions that are up to 1 week in length. And single-use licenses are perfect for a wedding, funeral, or other one-time event. In addition to congregational reprint licenses, One License offers a podcast streaming license for churches to stay connected to their many members, and a practice track license for music directors to share recordings with choir members and instrumentalists to help them learn their music. The One License customer service team is here to help. Our intelligent ticketing system and phone support ensure that your questions are promptly addressed. Email us at info@onelicense.net or call us at 1-800-663-1501. We believe in the power of music to connect and inspire communities. One License allows congregations to make the most of our member publishers' music, providing access to the finest music for the worshiping assembly. Whether you're using our service on an annual or a one-time basis, we're proud to offer our support. One License, inspiring congregational song.
So our webinar today will be divided into 4 parts. The first is an external overview of the website. The second is an internal overview for current license holders. The third is more information on special features, such as copyright compliance and group licenses. And the fourth is an extended Q&A session that's specifically tailored to your region. I'd like to introduce our license holder support agent, Kathy Connolly, who will explain the Q&A process today.
Hello, license holders. This is Kathy Connolly, your license holder support agent based here in Chicago, and I'll be helping with the Q&A process today. I have the pleasure of speaking to many of you over email through our online ticketing system, and that's exactly how we'll be answering your questions today. There are two ways to submit a question. The best way to submit a question is through the contact link in the upper right-hand corner after you are already logged into the website. Since you're logged in, our team will be able to see your organization name and license number, allowing us to find your account faster. You can also email info@onelicense.net, which will submit your question. Note that in both of these instances, you must write webinar in the subject or message so we know you are watching us live. Questions will be answered throughout and at the end of the call. Note that if your question is too specific to your organization, we'll respond via email within 1 business day. Our online ticketing system is the best and fastest way to get a hold of the license holder support team.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I've also given Nicholas permission to jump in and ask questions anytime that he thinks that something needs a little bit more clarity for our users. So feel free, Nicholas, at any time. But let's
don't worry.
Thank you. Let's move to an overview of the external portion of the website. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that OneLicense is primarily a reporting service and then secondarily a downloading service. So what that means is that all of the member publishers that participate with us, we have over 160 right now, and there's over 80,000 songs in our catalog. The vast majority of them have downloads available up on the website. They have the ability for you to download PDFs and TIFFs, etc. But the purpose of the website as a general rule is for you to report your reprints that you make or your reproductions that you make with your organization. So whether that's a worship aid, a bulletin, up on a projection screen, whatever that looks like to you is entirely up to you. You have the creative license to be able to do what's best for your organization that you worship with. But we exist for you to be able to obtain the copyright permission to reprint, podcast, and record hymns and songs for your congregation. So that's the reporting piece. And then we're secondarily a downloading service. So allowing you to find those high resolution image files to be able to use for your services. I do want to mention that we will not be able to answer questions through the raising your hand feature of the webinar, unfortunately. So do please send your questions to info@onelicense.net. Include that webinar notification to us, since we get tickets all the time, no matter what's going on. So that way we can kind of, pick it out of the crowd and be able to answer your question either live or at a good stopping point in the webinar. So thank you for understanding. Notice also that congregational music is the only portion of music that we cover. So any type of music for instrumentalists, choirs, cantors, etc., it must be purchased directly from the publisher. So we're going to give you, in most cases, that reprint box that you'll use for your congregation only. It's not an appropriate service for a choir, a cantor, instrumentalist, etc., because that music isn't there, and also our contracts don't prohibit us, do not allow us, I should say, to reprint music for anything else besides the congregation. So we also offer a lot of transparency about what we cover and what we don't cover. So searching music titles here, whether you're logged in or not, you'll be able to search for the titles that we cover. So if you're joining us on this webinar today because you're not sure if you want to join us or you don't have a license just yet, we are very transparent about what we cover, and you can search for that under this black section here and then clicking that green search here button. So I'll mention the 3-step process that was mentioned in the video: download, create, and report. OneLicense is not a worship aid creation service, but we do give you all of the tools to do so. So there's a variety of file formats that our member publishers decide to upload to our service. What that basically means is that OneLicense doesn't own any intellectual property. So all of the downloads or all of the data that you see is because our member publishers have provided it to the website. So if you see that something is missing or you're expecting something to be there and you can't find it, you can always email us and we can see if there's a specific reason as to why it's not there. But there is a general kind of culture of understanding that what's on the website is because our member publishers have permitted it to be there on the website. You're also welcome to type out text files yourself. So for example, if you wanted to include just the text in your worship aid and there isn't a download available for a text file, you're welcome to type that out yourself. You're also welcome to engrave the music into music engraving software if that's something you have access to. So like Sibelius or Finale or something like that, you have permission to do that. The member publishers that we have, they all use different fonts for their music engraving. So downloading something from GIA or OCP or Oxford, they're all going to look differently. And there are plenty of folks that want to put everything into the same font, so they engrave it themselves into a music software program like Sibelius or Finale, something like that, and you're permitted to do that. There are a number of select member publishers that we have here on our page, but I'll show you our member publisher page here in just a second. I want to bring your attention to this news and announcements section. Our news and announcements section directs directly to our blog, which is news.onelicense.net. So if you want to make note of that, news, just put the word NEWS in front of our website, onelicense.net, and then that's going to give you the ability to take a look at all of our blog posts that we have. We have monthly newsletter communications that are sent, but the blog is available anytime for tutorial videos, webinars, articles on our member publishers, education, etc. So I'll give you kind of a clue here. If you go up in the search bar in the upper right-hand corner and you type in the word webinar, in just a couple of days, you'll see that we already have our post here ready to go. So you'll see the webinar pop up with a pretty picture like the rest of these are. For those of you who are looking for more information on like the podcast streaming license, for example, you can view a webinar that was specifically dedicated to that license, again, by searching the word webinar in the upper right-hand corner and then clicking down here to webinar training, the podcast streaming license. So we highly encourage those of you who are looking for a deeper dive than what we're able to offer today, or if there's a specific topic that we weren't able to cover for you, to take a look at that. We typically host a new user webinar at the beginning of each calendar year. So you'll see the 2019 new user webinar. We did that on February 12th. You're more than welcome to still view this until next February. And then we'll likely have another webinar to engage all of you in. And of course, those are always offered free of charge. It's a part of the educational component of what we do here at One License. It's incredibly important to us. You can also search for the phrase year in review. That highlights, we had one for 2018 and 2017, that highlights our top posts from the year. So that kind of like pulls out from the crowd the posts that we like to highlight for you, especially posts on creating worship aids, our session at the National Pastoral Musicians Conference, the podcast streaming license, like I mentioned, and then also the post on the robust features of group licenses. We also have a webinar on the concept of group licenses as well. So lots of really, really helpful information here for you that I wanted to bring your attention to. I'll also show you that we have an FAQ section here at the footer. There's also an About Us section if you haven't had a chance to read that. Remembering too that contact, just like in the upper right-hand corner, is going to direct you to send us an email. If you're logged in, you'll be able to send us a message, and when we receive it, your license number, invoice number, and all that jazz will come up for us. That way it's really easy to find your account and give you a pretty straightforward answer. It directs us to an online ticketing system, allowing you to email our team. So the ticketing system is something that's really important to us. We're a global company and we have representatives all over the world. So if there's a question, for example, that Kathy has for me, she can assign the ticket to me. I can sign the ticket over to Nicholas. We can write internal notes on the tickets, and it allows our staff to work collaboratively on each customer's individual concern. So please send us those emails, again, for not only this webinar in general, but also if you have general questions, we're happy to answer them through this online ticketing system. It just looks like a regular email to you, but it's pretty cool on our end how we're able to assign tickets and move tickets and all that kind of stuff. You'll always know exactly where your ticket stands, whether it's open, pending, or solved. And at all times, we aspire to answer emails within 24 to 48 hours. So the How It Works page is exactly where I was showing that overview video in the beginning. You can get a quick overview of all of the different types of licenses that we have. It just kind of gives you a high-level overview here. And if you click on tutorial videos, It's the same as searching on our blog for the word tutorial. You'll be able to pull up the tutorial video series, which is the same as here on our website. So those are quick 2 to 3 minute long videos that give you an overview of how to reset your password, how to search for titles, download, report, etc. So our member publishers page has our list of all 160 different publishers that we work with. For example, you can search instead of scrolling, and you'll see OCP and all of the different song catalogs that they have. GIA is also one of the biggest member publishers that we work with, WLP as well. In your region, you may be more aware of Oxford or Kevin Mayhew or Stainer and Bell. So the website is pretty transparent about who we cover and who we don't cover. So we encourage you to certainly search on this page to see who we cover and whose music is available to you. I will mention that just in the last week or so, we've had Decani and Iona join us. So it's going to take them a little bit of time to fully furnish their catalogs on our website, but you can see for certain that they are now covered with us under the Wild Goose Resource Group in your specific region. They're covered under GIA in North America. The options and prices page is going to give you a breakdown. Because I'm logged in here, I can't switch over to UK pricing. But if you do click on the options and prices page, there's a drop down here for your region, and then you can see what those prices are. Our options and prices page is really kind of spelling out all the different licenses that we cover, but also the average weekly attendance number is the thing that is the most important piece of all of this. So when you're looking at purchasing a license or when you get your invoice for renewal, you always want to make sure that the average weekly attendance category is accurate to who you're serving. So when all of the licenses came over to us from Calamus, we did our best to map them into the appropriate category, but still feel free to double check that through the website, and then also you can email us and ask as well. For example, if your congregation has an average weekly attendance of 200 to 400 people, your pricing here in your region's specific dollar denomination would be available for you, and we would consider you a Category D license. School licenses are all based on student enrollment. So because those numbers fluctuate a little bit, each year, we have them in pretty much, a bit broader categories for you to take a look at. So you can view those. The single-use license and the event license, those are all broken down based on time period. So a single-use license is good for a 24-hour period. That's great for something like a wedding or a funeral. Also to cover Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, that would still be a 24-hour period. But something like Triduum, if you happen to be Catholic or you celebrate Triduum, an event license is going to be a better bet for you. That's going to cover Holy Thursday, Good Friday, the Vigil on Saturday, and then Easter Sunday as well. So be mindful of those. Those are good for up to 1 week in length. Also conventions, conferences, mission trips, and retreats tend to benefit from the event licenses as well. If you have an annual license with us and you're having a retreat on site, or even you're having a retreat off site, but it's sponsored by the church, or there's a wedding or a funeral that's happening on site, all of those worshiping events are going to be covered. So I don't want you to think that you have to have an annual license and then you also have to have single use or event licenses on top of that. The annual license is going to cover you as long as the event happens within that average weekly attendance category. So if you're having a larger event, like you're gathering with neighboring parishes or you're doing a diocesan-wide event, that isn't something that's going to be covered under your specific church or organization's license. So you do want to be mindful of that. But as a general rule, if your students are having a retreat, if there's an AA meeting or a small group meeting or something like that that's gathering at the church, all of those events are going to be covered outside of your general weekly or weekend worship. So Kathy, do we have any questions so far? Or Nicholas, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to add before we move to the internal portion of the website?
I think you're doing wonderfully so far. I've followed it with ease.
I do have a question coming through. You did speak about the Decani catalog. Steve from St. Thomas More Church was wondering, when are you going to add the full Decani catalog? And if you could explain how things are added to our database.
Yeah, so when a member publisher joins us, there's a contract and a questionnaire and all that jazz that happens because of all of the legality of intellectual property and copyright law. So after that, we give them all of the tools that they need to add their titles or their catalogs to our service. So there's typically a little bit of a window that we have to wait for them to add everything. I will show you the manual submission process since we're kind of moving towards the internal portion of the website. That is a great way to help publishers build their catalog, but you can also just be mindful of the fact that they've joined us and maybe report titles within a month or so. That would be a good kind of note to make for yourself as we move into October to give them some time. As a reminder, we only have what our member publishers have provided to us. So it really is up to them. As you know, we work with a variety of different sizes of companies. Some of our folks aren't even companies, they're individual people. So it may take some time for them to acclimate their catalogs to the service.
Okay, and then Andrew from Eastbourne Ordinary Admission asks about UK publishers specifically. The UK publisher of the Grail Psalter, which he uses weekly, is HarperCollins, not GIA. It was covered by the Calamus license and is in one license, he says, but is questioning, are the royalties going to the right place? Can it be made easier?
So at this point, HarperCollins is not a member publisher with us. We are always looking for member publishers to join us. But as far as I'm aware, at this time, those pieces would not be covered because of that. So there tends to be this kind of hard line when it comes to copyright. So just because something was a part of another licensing service doesn't mean that it's automatically going to transfer to us. There's a new contract and new agreements and all those things that have to happen. So in the spirit of transparency, which is something that's really important to us, I would follow up with HarperCollins specifically on that. Because I want to make sure that you still have permission to use the pieces that you want to use. You're just going to have to go to them directly.
Okay, thank you.
So the internal portion of the website, after you're logged in, the My Account button here is really helpful. Under My Profile, you can take a look at your organization's address, all of the different licenses that you have. I'll draw your attention to this green arrow here. You can view your invoice. You can download a copy of the terms and conditions or the terms of agreement of the service. And also the Send Welcome Packet button. The Sending the Welcome Packet button is really important. I'm using a dummy email address, which is why that error message came up. But the welcome packet is really helpful to make sure that all of your users have the right information that they need. So in the welcome packet, you'll see a letter from us. You'll see your invoice or statement, depending on whether it's paid or unpaid. You'll see a helpful instructions document, and then you'll also see the terms and conditions of the license. So the welcome packet really is that kind of like starter piece for you to be able to move on to the website with a lot of confidence and understanding of knowing what you're doing. If the welcome packet is not something that you've received yet, or for whatever reason this button isn't working for you, send us an email and we'll send you a copy of the welcome packet. The practice track license and the podcast streaming license, obviously they all have different requirements to them. There's different legalities to them. So downloading those individual welcome packets is going to be helpful for you if you happen to have multiple licenses with us. Under your default worship resources, really on the left-hand side here, this is just a list of all of the hymnal resources that are searchable on our website. So again, this is an added level of participation with our member publishers. So to be a part of our service is one thing, to have your titles available for reporting is another, to have them downloadable is another, and then to have a hymnal indexed on our website for search results is a very high level of participation. So there are some publishers that just don't have the means to be able to participate in that, scale on our website, and there are plenty that do. So just be mindful of that. Default worship resource settings really just means that those results are going to populate to the top. That's really all it means. There's no reason for you to have to check any of them. Services, however, we encourage this number to be whichever number of services has within the exact amount of music. So for example, if you have 4 masses on a weekend, 2 of them are traditional, 1 of them is contemporary, and then 1 of them is a youth mass. If you're using music at all, then it would be 3. So all 3 of those different types of worship styles. It might be easier for you just to make this number 1, or to make it 2, since the music at the traditional services is shared. If the music is all the same at all 4 services, then the number can be 4. Really, and this number can be 1. It really doesn't matter, but all it does is save you a little bit of time when you're reporting, because it multiplies what you're doing. If you are reporting a title, of course, you have the option to adjust it at any time, but these default settings can be really helpful for folks. If you've generated any reports, you would see them here under this download tab. And you'll see again, because we're using a dummy account today, that there's no downloads that we've already, or there's no reports, I should say, that we've generated. You can make a payment by clicking on this button here in the upper right-hand corner. You can also access this button from the exterior of the website as well. So if your treasurer isn't registered on our website, all they'll need to do is just type in the ID number of the invoice, and then the customer email address who is associated on the account. So for example, if the director of music's email is associated as the account owner, they can type in their email here, and they can type in the invoice number, and then they can search for that invoice specifically, so that way they can pay that invoice. So I'll bring your attention to the actual reporting process now. We expect 100% reporting on our service, and that's something that I want to be very direct with all of you about today. There are other licensing services that only require quarterly reporting or reporting every couple of years. We believe that our service is as transparent and as just as a service could possibly be. So every time you report something, we receive that report and we pay out those royalties to the decimal point. It's incredibly important to us. It's a justice issue. The livelihood of our composers and the works that they've created, the authors, the publishers, the editors, everyone who is a part of the process of creating worship for congregational song, we want to make sure that they're justly compensated. So it's incredibly important to us that you're reporting 100% of what you use. You'll see here that the system will let you report 12 weeks in the past and then 6 weeks into the future. So today is September 10th, so we're right here on week 35. So I can go 12 weeks into the past, and I can go 6 weeks into the future. So this can be really helpful when you're planning, for example, Lent or Advent, something where maybe the music is going to stay the same. It's also helpful if you're going away on vacation. You technically only need to report with us quarterly, but we do recommend monthly, so that way the reporting doesn't become too cumbersome. Of course, if you're searching on our website and you want to hit that green report button while you're there on a song, absolutely feel free to do that, because then you won't have to come back. But figure out whatever the best process is for you. So if you know that there's a particular day of the month that's slow for you, if the third Friday of the month is typically a day that you catch up on work, set a little calendar reminder for yourself, so that way you can report all of your titles if it's not something that you do weekly or as you use them. So I'll give you a couple of examples here. In this case, I'm specifically thinking of Marty Haugen's All Are Welcome, so I want to give you an example here. By searching All Are Welcome, I now have to go through and double check the information of all of these titles until I reach the one that I'm looking for. So you'll see that it was the 5th result, because there are others that appeared higher, likely because of how they appear in the alphabet. I can narrow my results just like a Google search by typing in All Are Welcome Haugen. And because the member publisher has provided that piece of data, it's going to appear first for me. By clicking View More Versions, obviously this is a very popular song, which is why I used it as an example. You'll see that the song has existed in a variety of different resources. Now, I know that the vast majority of these are either North American resources or Australia and New Zealand resources. Again, because we're onboarding all of our Calamus and UK publishers, it takes some time for all of those titles to appear. And hymnals to appear and all that jazz. So what you're seeing here is primarily North America and Australia and New Zealand. But what you can do is preview a copy of the music so you can see if it's what you're looking for. So if this feels right to you, if this is the right font and the right setting that you're looking for, you can either download a copy of a text file or a PDF or a TIFF. So text files are just going to have the words, so you can copy and paste those into anywhere you'd like. So whether that's a worship aid, projection screen, whatever makes the most sense for you. You have lots of options in terms of the creativity of how you do that. So this text file here is just going to have the words, and you can feel free to copy paste those. I'll download a copy of a PDF and a TIFF as well to give you an example. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, it really depends on how your browser works and what browser you're using. So I'm on Safari, so it may look different for you by the time you're actually downloading things. But here's a copy of the PDF. You'll see it's pretty straightforward. It's a very long song. It has 5 verses, so it will likely take up an entire page in your worship aid. I will give you an example of a TIFF as well. So TIFF, T-I-F-F files are gigantic. TIFF files can fit onto a billboard. TIFF files can be expanded and shrunk, and you can do lots of great stuff with them. We like to use TIFF files here in the office. They have a little bit of transparency to them too, so you can always layer a color behind them. You can layer an image behind them. Say this is, you know, an Easter psalm setting on a projection screen, and you wanted to have some pretty stock photos of tulips or something like that behind it. There's lots of, again, ways that you can make it pretty creative for you. Another way that you can browse specifically is to browse by Mass setting or Lutheran liturgical setting. So I know Mass of Christ the Savior is something that's very popular in your region. Instead of searching here, Mass of Christ the Savior, and then having the results return everything in the catalog for Mass, for of, for Christ, for the, you see where I'm getting here? By clicking on Browse by Mass setting, you can kind of sequester all of the results to what you're looking for. So you'll see here, it's just the one page. Here's everything that you're looking for, the Alleluia, the Gospel acclamation, the general intercessions, Holy, Holy, etc. The entirety of the Mass is here. So what you can do is click on several of these if you'd like, and you can click Report All Selected. You can specify the week that you want to report for. And then here again is where you can edit the number of services that you want to report it for. You can either send and view the report, which is going to take you to the page that we were on before under My Account Report Usage. Under August 15th is now where you'll see that I've reported those titles. You also have the opportunity to duplicate. So if you wanted to make sure that there were multiple weeks that you were reporting this for, you can copy the songs onto another week. So that's a really great way that you can expedite the reporting process as well. I'll give you another example with Christ Be Our Light. In this case, it did pop up Bernadette Farrell's, or Farrell, depending on how you pronounce it, her song first. Otherwise, you can always, again, narrow those search results. If you happen to have, I just want to give you an example of how to search by a hymnal. So for example, in Worship 4th edition, it's number 584. So up here, if I happened to be a user of Worship 4th edition, I can type in Worship 4th edition 584, click those search results, and then only one result is going to come up. So to give you an example here, let's just walk up a few numbers. So for whatever reason, song 586 in Worship 4th edition is not covered under this service. If you're taking a look at the copyright information at the bottom of the piece, and for whatever reason you do think it should be covered, feel free to send us an email. We're happy to look into it for you. We're happy to do some research on our end. When songs are licensed into a hymnal, typically the licensing stops there. So when a publisher is creating a hymnal, they're doing their best to create as well-rounded of a process as possible. They want to have a hymnal that has lots of titles and is going to be applicable for lots of organizations. But in many cases, those copyrights then don't transfer their licensing permissions to our service. So that could be a great reason as to why a song isn't available when there are other songs that are. You can also refine your search by contributor, publisher, tune, meter, or psalm number. But again, that data is only going to return something to you if the publisher has provided it. So typing in Psalm 23 is only going to get you so far if the publisher hasn't made their Psalm 23 pieces available. If the song doesn't have a download available, you're welcome to use your own resource. I mentioned earlier at the beginning that you can also engrave your own music notation software if you have access to something like that, like Finale or Sibelius. You're also welcome to scan and upload the copy from the back of an octavo, from a pew hymnal, something like that. So if the music specifically isn't available on the website, you do have permission to use it from wherever you have access to it. You'll just have to report it through our service. A common question that we get is, do I have to report the number of copies that I use? And the answer to that is no, because you do have an average weekly attendance category that you're listed in with us. So we already know the number of copies or the range of copies that you're making. So there's no need to further communicate that to us. You'll just report your song for the number of services that you're using it for. So say we did this for a special communion service, for example, and then you can indicate the week that you're using it in, and you can either submit and continue your search, or it'll redirect you to the report usage page. Do we have any questions? I'll start with you, Nicholas, that have come up first, and then I'll go over to Kathy.
Well, I've got one that I was going to jump in with earlier. It was about the Laudate. Stephen Dean obviously is in charge of Declining Music and will be getting around to putting the Laudate on, but not all of the songs that are available in Laudate will be covered by one license. So we're back to the bit where the member publishers, and who is covered, are covered, won't be identical. So there will be things in Laudate that won't be available on one license because they wouldn't have been covered in the first place by Calamus. But that is something that he will get around to. That was one. The other one I was going to ask was, we've had several people, you mentioned about the sub-users, adding users. If you started off as the person who was in charge of the website and then you wanted to change that, the person in charge has to get someone at one license to change that for them. That's not something they can do themselves, is it?
Yeah, so on this example of my account that you're looking at here, I am listed as a sub-user. I'm not listed as the account holder because of just for this example here. So if I was the account holder, I would see an additional box here that would give me permission to add additional users. So no, the account owner is the person who can add users, edit users, delete them, etc. And if for whatever reason you don't know which email is associated with the account, or there seems to have been a change in staffing, we can always answer those questions via email, and we can help set up the appropriate person on the account.
Excellent.
Great. Kathy, any questions related to what we were talking about?
Sure. So somebody at St. Paul's Church was asking about Laudate as well. But one of the questions we get a lot is with the report usage page or the search music page, could you again explain the browse by mass setting or other liturgical setting? Because some people think that is limiting their searching by title. They think that it's filtering their results.
Yeah, essentially what it's doing is sequestering all of the songs from a specific mass setting into one location. So instead of searching the word mass and having 100 million bazillion results, you can kind of narrow down what it is that you're looking for. So the Browse by Mass Settings section, there's also, if there are organizations that aren't Catholic that use the settings that were available before 2010, those are going to be on the right-hand side here. All of the settings after 2010 or after the revision of the Mass are over here on the left-hand side. So we encourage you to search specifically for the title of the Mass. I brought up Mass of Christ the Savior earlier, and you'll see all of those titles from that specific Mass centralized. I'd like to bring your attention to our copyright compliance video. This is just a super quick video that I want to show you. But since you are all joining us as kind of, brand new, turning over a new leaf organizations, I want to give you the opportunity to have a fresh start. So this is a video that we created in combination with some of our publishers. There are 4 steps that you can do today to ensure that your organization is copyright compliant. So let's watch this together.
Hello, license holders. This is Brenna Cronin, General Manager of One License. Whether you are brand new in your position or just wanting to start the year on the right note, here are 4 simple steps that you can do today to ensure that your organization is copyright compliant for the coming year and beyond. Number 1, ensure that correct copyright and licensing information is listed on all materials that you reprint. This includes the title, composer, copyright year, and any other information included in the reprint box of the given song, as well as your One License reprint information. Be sure old company names are removed. Only One License should be listed, and not any reference to onelicense.net, Word of Life International, or Licensing Online. Be sure the phrase reprinted with permission under One License number and insert your number, period, all rights reserved, period, is printed on your worship aids, bulletins, projection screens, YouTube videos, Facebook Lives, and anywhere else that reprinted or streamed music is used. Number 2, view your present and download a copy of your previous 12-month reporting history. From the Report Usage tab, account owners, sub-users, and group managers can review the current quarterly reporting period, meaning what titles have been submitted for 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future, as well as their legacy reports and 12-month histories. To review past reports or download a copy of your 12-month reporting history, scroll to the bottom of the page and click the appropriate link. This is a great way to audit your usage and hold your team accountable for anything missing. Number 3, destroy photocopies of music that you find. Go through file cabinets, old bookshelves, and even pay a visit to that dusty old storage room. Non-congregational music that was photocopied without the express consent of the publisher is illegal and can carry debilitating fines. Even if you didn't photocopy the music yourself, if your church or organization is in possession of or distributes illegal copies, you could be faced with a claim of copyright infringement. Before destroying the music, take note of the titles, composers, and publishers of the pieces so you can contact them for legal octavos or versions. Protect your organization. Prioritize this task. Number 4, confirm that your category size correctly matches your average weekly attendance. Every organization that has a license with us is set into an average weekly attendance category. This category indicates the range of people you have attending your services. These ranges ensure that whether you have a dip in summer attendance and a spike around the holidays, or if you have traveling college students or snowbirds, your organization will be covered regardless of the season. You can view your current category from the Licenses tab under My Account. Visit the Options and Prices page to see the range of categories and make sure that your organization is in the right one. Typically, you can communicate increases or decreases when your invoice is up for renewal. If your category change is significant, please contact our office and we can assist in prorating your account. So in summary, copyright compliance in 4 simple steps that you can achieve today. Number 1, display correct copyright and licensing information. 2, view and download your reporting history for auditing. 3, destroy photocopied music. And 4, confirm your category size. Thanks for taking a few minutes to review this information. I hope you feel empowered to follow up with your team on these 4 important steps to ensure that your organization is copyright compliant this year and beyond. As always, please reach out to our team at info@onelicense.net if you have any questions. Have a great year, everyone.
So thanks for taking a few minutes with us and watching that. It's incredibly important, especially as we transition away from Calamus and into One License, that you take the time to update anything that you had reprinted. So if you're publishing a weekly worship aid, or some other, liturgical seasonal brochure or something that you're using to engage with your congregation with music, anything that you make from this point on is going to need to have that specific line reprinted with permission under One License number. Your number is typically an A- number. Unless you're a school, then it's an L- number. And then all rights reserved. And basically what that means is, people, when they come to a wedding or a funeral, for example, they want to keep a memento. It's something that happens, and it's not something that we want to police. We never want to take a funeral booklet out of someone's hand as they're walking out of the church. That just doesn't feel hospitable or kind. So in this case, what we encourage you to do is write all rights reserved at the end of your licensing information line. So reprinted with permission under One License number A- or L-, period, all rights reserved. And basically what that means is after that worship aid leaves your physical site, you're not responsible for anything that happens to it after that. So folks can keep it as a memento after the wedding or the funeral, and that isn't something that you have to worry about. So I definitely want you to feel empowered that you are able to create things that people can leave with for those types of occasions. There's one other thing that I want to direct your attention to before we get into our extended Q&A session here. And on our blog, if there are those of you who are interested in group licenses, so if you're the head of a diocese or the head of a school district, 2 things that I want to direct your attention to. The group license webinar, this was a fantastic deep dive for not only current group license managers, but also prospective groups as well. Again, we're on our blog, news.onelicense.net. Just put the word news in front of our website. Take a look at this webinar. It is fantastic and a really, really great deep dive into the concept of the group licenses. Our brochures are here, so that's going to give you pricing broken down by region. And then the robust features of group licenses article, that's what we published first. So take a look at this, and then the webinar is really going to expand everything that we have here. You can ask yourself some questions like, how do I know if a group license is a good fit for me? What does the onboarding process look like? What does the ongoing management look like? Like what is expected of me as the account owner for an entire diocese or an entire school district? So these are some really, really great resources for you. Over 10% of our licenses are group licenses, and it gives those archdioceses or those school districts a lot of confidence in the fact of knowing that all of their organizations are covered. So if that's something that you're interested in, take a look at those resources, send us an email, and we're happy to talk further. So on that note, I'll turn it over to Kathy for a more formal Q&A. And if there's a question that you think is specifically positioned for Nicholas or myself, feel free. Otherwise, we'll just jump in, and with these last 10 minutes here, we'll see what we can answer. I also want to mention again, if you didn't hear it in the beginning, if you raised your hand in the webinar, unfortunately, we aren't able to accommodate asking questions that way. So send us an email right now at info@onelicense.net, put webinar in the subject line, and we'll get to your question.
Okay, to start off the questions, a user from the Briary Retreat and Conference Center asks about annual reporting, and we've already spoken to the timeline of reporting. The questions being, if we have difficulties returning the annual report online, do you have a liaison person to assist remotely? And Part two, or second question, will our annual subscription costs increase?
Yeah, so no, all of our educational tools, access to our staff, emails. If you were in North America, we could speak on the phone. But access to all of those resources, no charge. Everything is included with your service. So maybe that goes without saying, but I think it's really important to mention that. We are incredibly dedicated to education. We're incredibly dedicated to supporting your ministries. We are a part of churches ourselves. We run ministries ourselves. So we really want to make sure that everyone feels empowered and educated, and not like there's this feeling of fear or overt compliance, or big scary copyright words like that. So Nicholas, I will let you speak to the question though. If folks have reports that they have not turned in from before the acquisition, how should they go about doing that? Do you want them to still send them to you, or should they just go ahead and report them through us now?
That is entirely up to them. Obviously, depending upon when they've joined, they might have 1 month's reporting, or they might have 11 months still in hand to go. If it's a long list and you want to just send it to me at Calamus, certainly please do so. That's not a problem. I can deal with it. If you've only got a few songs and you're confident that you can just put them on one license, that's fine too. Obviously, anything that is older than 12 weeks won't be on the date list in front of you for reporting. So, Brennan, would you prefer that anything before that period comes to me at Calamus, or would you prefer that they just, put it into one license regardless of the date?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we get this question often from folks who just get behind on their reporting for whatever reason. Maybe they were short-staffed, or there was a sabbatical or medical reason that came up. So what we say to that, obviously you see June 13th is the first week that you can report. It's better late than never is my best answer to that. We certainly don't want to see, Easter songs being reported in September, but we understand, we get it, and we'll be able to pay out those royalties appropriately. So if you want to play around new users with the system, submit those reports under June 13th. For anything before that, it may look like you have 25 titles here, which isn't necessarily accurate, but go ahead and get them in there. We encourage accurate weekly reporting, and the great thing about that is that then you have a historical record going forward. So if you want to know what you did last Lent, last Advent, you'll have access to that, because you can view all of your past reports. And you can also, once that 12-month mark kind of rolls around for you all, you can download a copy of what you've done in the last 12 months. So for example, if I wanted to review specifically what I was doing Thanksgiving of last year, I can click this button, and I can take a look at all of the music that we used for that service. So I know that's not a holiday you all celebrate, but just for an example, you can go back in time and you can see what you used for a specific day.
Okay, question about reporting. When you say we have to, in quotes, report what we use, does that mean whenever we print something for use by a congregation, or does it also include singing a song from a specific hymnal with the congregation using a commercially printed book? We don't print sheets every week, we just use Laudate.
Yeah, that's great. So if you're just using the hymnal, so if you're instructing everyone to open up to a certain page and they're singing from the hymnal, or if you have a printed leaflet that says Laudate hymnal number 102, there's nothing that you're required to report. You have already purchased those hymnals. You have purchased the rights to use them as much or as little as you want. The purpose of one license is for when you're reprinting or reproducing music. So anytime you take it out of its original source, so the hymnal is its original source, when you take it out and you're making a bulletin, a worship aid, projection screen, funeral booklet, etc. Supplemental hymnal is another great example. We have a great blog post on that that I'll draw your direction to. Just search the word supplemental and it'll pop up for you. You only are required to reprint, or report, I should say, what you're reprinting. So anything that you're singing directly out of a hymnal is not required to be reported.
On the Search Music page, could you review again the manual submission?
Yes, thank you. I know I said I was going to do that, so thanks for bringing my attention to that. Let's say that there's a song out there called Jesus Remember Me, and it's not the Taizé version that we all know and love. Say that it's something else. But for whatever reason you feel like it should be there, but you have questions as to whether it should be there or not, send us an email and we're happy to clarify with you. The manual submission process, though, is going to be a great example for folks like Decani who are just onboarding themselves to our service, or if really and truly you feel like there's a song that's missing. So if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, presumably, you know, I've searched through these results and I'm not finding what I'm looking for. There's this blue button here called Manually Submit a Song, which gives you an options here of, you know, shortening what you're searching for, or if you're still unsuccessful, you can have it reviewed by the publisher. When you click that, it's going to ask you for some additional information. It's basically going to ask you to prove, for lack of a better word, that the song should in fact be covered. So please fill out all of this information, fill out this additional information section if there's any notes that you want to add. And then once you click Submit Song, that's going to go into a queue for our member publishers to review. Again, in the spirit of transparency, some of them are very active about this and some of them aren't. So if you are seeking specific questions, I would encourage you to contact us first. But then the member publishers can review the titles, they can reject anything and give a specific reason. For example, if it's in the public domain, which means that the author has been dead for more than 70 years, so something like Silent Night, you do not need to report that. But if there is a title that should be there, they will certainly add it to their catalogs after the fact.
Just to jump in there, Brenna, I've had someone ask me before, they were trying to manually report a song and it didn't have the year in the copyright. A lot of the boxes, they're kind of compulsory. If you haven't got the information, it won't let you progress. If you haven't got all of the information, is it possible to put in most of the information and then, you know, put some workaround in so that you can actually report it manually?
Yeah, so there I would add the word like unknown or NA or 0000, and then something, you're right, Nicholas, to get the screen to advance. And then under additional information, I would write, hey, I'm pulling this from the Laudate hymnal. I don't know the copyright year, and then include any other information that you're looking for. That's a great question.
I do have a renewal invoice question. Some of our Calamus transfers are receiving their renewal notices already. They've moved into a larger category based on their average weekly attendance and wonder if they can adjust for that online.
So adjusting for that online yourself is not allowed. And really that's just from a spirit of honesty. We don't want folks to adjust their category down to A, which is 1 to 25 people, when they're serving hundreds or thousands of people. So we do ask that you email us anytime that you have a category change, whether it's up or down. Those category changes, as a reminder, are on that options and prices page. And again, these are listed in US, but when you're viewing from your end and your IP address, you can see the results in your region and your denomination. It's not right or just when you should be paying, you know, let's say $600 a year, and you've adjusted your category down to 115. It's just not, it's not right and it's not just. So that's something that is really important to us. So we ask that if you have any changes, you do send us an email. We'd be happy to adjust it either up or down for you. The vast majority of the time, I mean, you know, some of these categories, 1,000 to 2,200, 400 to 700, those are pretty big ranges. And you may not have numbers that go up and down that significantly. So the vast majority of our organizations do stay in the category that they've been in for a number of years, unless, of course, there are parishes that are merging. There was something significant that happened. There was a closing of a neighborhood organization, something like that. Those would all adjust the numbers a bit greater. But as a general rule, the numbers typically stay the same. And the same thing for student enrollment as well. We give you kind of a big range. We say average weekly attendance because we know the numbers are going to go up around the holidays. We know they're going to go down in the summer. If you have college students, if you have snowbirds, things like that, all different things that really vary depending on the region, and you have a good handle on that. So that's why we ask for an average weekly attendance, so that way we can be sure that you're in the right category. So it looks like those are the end of the questions as far as what Kathy has, if we either didn't get to a section and you do have questions on that, or if you have questions that come up in the next couple of days as you're reviewing your own notes, send us an email again at info@onelicense.net, and we would be happy to reply to you. Again, Nicholas, Kathy, and I, we all work together, and we have other team members as well, and we'll get those answers to those questions. So Nicholas, if you have any parting thoughts or final questions, I encourage you to share them now. Otherwise, we'll wrap up here.
I do have one final question. I don't know how much this happens in America, but in England we get quite a lot of churches that have been grouped together. So you might get one priest who is managing 4 or 5 churches. Is it permissible to, bunch them together under one license, or would each church need a separate license?
Great question. So we expect some type of legal combination to have happened in order for the organizations to be together. So having a shortage of priests or having to share priests isn't something that we would consider legally binding. But when you say a priest managing different organizations, that might be a better fit. And that would be something that we would want to talk with the organization one-on-one with. Of course, if you share some type of legal address, tax information, official decree from a bishop or other, managing body, we would all consider that to be enough to combine an organization. Unfortunately, what we're seeing a lot in the U.S. Because of all of the scandals, are that churches are closing, numbers are dropping, and there are legal combinations that are happening. There are cluster parishes, that's a word that we see quite often, or community parishes, where there are physical buildings that are being combined under legal entities or legal umbrellas. So if that's something that applies to you, of course, we're happy to honor that. Just again, send us an email. That's kind of a one-on-one thing that we can handle. But as a general rule, no, you can't share your license with a neighboring church unless there's some type of legal combination that's happened.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Well then, Nicholas, if you have any other final thoughts, I know that we are very, very excited for all of you to be a part of the One License family. We really, really believe in our service. We're real people. We really want to help. We really are here for your questions. So if you have them, send them over. If you have feedback, send it over. We're happy to edit and move along as we, move into the future here together. So I'll say goodbye here from Chicago. Nicholas, any other final thoughts?
It was very informative, and I enjoyed listening to every minute of it. It's been a big help for me, at least. I don't know about for anyone else. So thank you very much, and goodbye to anyone who is listening.
All right, very well. Thanks, everyone. Take care. You have a great rest of your day.